Hello viewers. In this presentation, we are going to discuss gravitation. To begin with, let's start with Kepler's law of planetary motion. Based on the accumulated data of Tycho Brahe, Johannes Kepler proposed three laws related to planetary motion. The first law is the law of orbits. According to this law, every planet moves around the Sun in an elliptical path, keeping Sun at one of its foci. The second law is the law of areas. According to this law, the imaginary line joining the planet and the Sun sweep the same amount of area at the same time interval. This law can be explained with the help of the conservation of angular momentum. The third law is named as law of periods. According to this law, the sequence of the time period of revolution of a planet is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the ellipse traced by the planet. Though we know planets move around the Sun in an elliptical path, for simplicity of the concept, we are assuming that a planet is moving around the Sun in a circular orbit of radius r with velocity v. The centripetal force for this motion is provided by the gravitational force. Hence, equating the expressions for centripetal and gravitational force and replacing velocity of the planet in terms of time period of the revolution and the radius of the orbit, we get an expression stating that square of the time period divided by cube to the radius of the orbit is a constant. In other words, the square of the time period of revolution of the planet is proportional to the cube of the radius of the orbit. This law can also be verified with actual data of our solar system. If we evaluate the square of the time period of revolution of a planet divided by cube of the semi-major axis of the elliptical path traced by the planet, then we get nearly the same values for all the planets revolving around the Sun, which is shown in the adjacent figure. Newton's proposed law of gravitation can explain the terrestrial gravitation as well as Kepler's laws. It says that every body in the universe attracts every other body with a force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance of separation between their centers. The force acts along the line joining the two bodies. The gravitational force between the two bodies is always attractive. The magnitude of the force of attraction between the two bodies is the same and they are opposite in direction. This force remains unaffected by the presence of any other object around the concerned objects. While formulating an equation out of the statements of Newton's law of gravitation, we have to use a proportionality constant. This proportionality constant is termed as universal gravitational constant. So far, both observations and theories suggest that universal gravitational constant has the same value throughout the universe. The value of the universal gravitational constant g can be determined experimentally, and this was done by English scientist Henry Cavendish. The schematic of the apparatus used is shown here. The bar AB has two small lead spheres of masses m each attached to its ends. The bar is suspended from a rigid support by a fine wire. Two large lead spheres are brought close to the small ones but on the opposite sides as shown. The big spheres attract the nearby small ones by equal and opposite force as shown. There is no net force on the bar but only a torque which is clearly equal to the force of attraction between the small and big balls times the length of the bar L. Due to this torque, the suspended wire gets twisted till such time as the restoring torque of the wire equals to the torque itself. If theta is the angle of twist of the suspended wire, the restoring torque is proportional to theta. Let the torque be equal to k theta, where k is the restoring couple per unit angle of twist. K can be measured independently. Equating the above equations and simplifying, we can estimate the value of universal gravitational constant. Since Cavendish's experiment, the measurement of g has been refined and the currently accepted value is g equal to 6.67 times 10 to the power minus 11 Newton meter square per kilogram square. Now let us move on to the acceleration due to gravity. Considering Earth be a sphere of mass m and radius r and an object of mass small m is at height h above the surface of Earth. Now, gravitational force will act between the objects and the force of attraction between the Earth and the small object will be Gmm by r plus h whole square. Due to the gravitational force, the object will get accelerated toward the center of the Earth. Equating the two expressions, we can obtain the equation for acceleration due to gravity as g equal to gm by r plus h whole square. Now at the surface of Earth, h is 0. Hence, we can rewrite the above equation at the surface of Earth as g equal to gm by r square. This is the equation of acceleration due to gravity on the surface of Earth. Here we have seen acceleration due to gravity changes slightly based on the height of the object from the surface of Earth. Similarly, it depends on the depth as well as rotation of Earth. We first discuss the change in acceleration due to gravity due to height. We can obtain the expression for acceleration due to gravity for an object of mass m at height h from Earth's surface, based on the concepts we have just discussed. Now, by expanding the term 1 plus h by r to the power minus 2 and neglecting the higher order terms, we can simplify the equation of acceleration due to gravity as g prime equal to g times 1 minus 2h by r. Now let us discuss the change in acceleration due to gravity due to depth. At depth d, the actual sphere of the influence shrinks. If we consider the density of the Earth is uniform throughout, then using simple mathematical steps, we can reach the expression for acceleration due to gravity at depth d in terms of acceleration due to gravity on the surface of the Earth as g prime equal to g times 1 minus d by r. Now, for quantifying the variation in acceleration due to gravity due to Earth's rotation, we need to have the concepts of centrifugal force and vector addition. Using these concepts and neglecting the higher order terms, we can relate the acceleration due to gravity at latitude lambda as g prime equal to g minus r omega square cos square lambda. Now, let us move on the gravitational potential energy. We know the gravitational force is a conservative force, and for conservative forces, we can define potential energy. In general, for the conservative force field, change in potential energy is defined as the negative of work done by the conservative force. That is, U2 minus U1 equal to minus of Wc, or in differential form du equal to minus of dwc. To get an expression for gravitational potential energy, let us consider an object of mass m1 is placed at the origin. Another object of mass m2 is placed at a distance x from the origin. The gravitational force on mass m2 due to mass m1 at that position is going to be F equal to g m1 m2 by x square. If we consider the object is moving an infinitesimally small distance dx away from the origin, then the work done on the object can be evaluated as dw equal to minus g m1 m2 by x square times dx. The negative sign shows that the direction of motion and the gravitational force are oppositely directed. This much of work done is equal to the change in potential energy for the infinitesimally small movement. Now, if we have to move the object from point A to point B, which are at a distance Ra and Rb respectively, then the above expression for potential energy becomes Ua minus Ub equal to G m1 m2 times 1 upon Ra minus 1 upon Rb. Here we got an equation where the only change in gravitational potential energy is expressed. Therefore, we have to select an appropriate reference to write the potential energy of a system. This can be done by considering zero gravitational potential energy when two objects are separated by an infinite distance. We can define the gravitational potential energy of a particle at some position as the energy required to bring that particle from infinity, that is, from the position of zero potential to a given position. Using this concept, we can calculate the change in gravitational potential energy of the system when a point object of mass m is moved to a height h above the surface of Earth. U2 minus U1 equal to gmm by r minus gmm by r plus h, which is equal to mgh. Using the concepts of conservation of mechanical energy, we can also obtain an equation for escape velocity. Conservation of mechanical energy suggests that the sum of mechanical energy is conserved. So, kinetic energy at point 1 plus potential energy at point 1 is equal to kinetic energy at point 2 plus potential energy at point 2. Now, for escape velocity, we can consider potential energy at point 2 equal to 0. This is because we have to send the projectile beyond the influence of our gravitational field. Now, if the object is projected with initial velocity u, then using the above equation we can write down half mu square minus g me m by re is equal to kinetic energy at higher point. This equation must satisfy, and when the projectile is crossing the influence of Earth, its velocity can be just 0 or it should be having some positive value, which makes the kinetic energy term positive. Hence, we can write it down half of mu square minus g me m by re must be greater than or equal to 0, which concludes that for the successful escape, the initial velocity of the projection must be greater than or equal to square root of 2g me by re or square root of 2g re. At next, let us discuss the kinetic and potential energy for a satellite of mass m moving at a distance r from the center of the planet of mass M. Using the concept of centripetal force, we can obtain its expression for velocity and calculate its kinetic energy. T equal to half of mv square, that is equal to gmm by 2 r. The potential energy for the satellite would be V equal to minus gmm by r. Hence, the total mechanical energy is going to be T plus V equal to minus of gmm by 2r. As the total mechanical energy is negative, it suggests that the satellite should revolve around the planet. Now, there is some special kind of satellites which are having a time period of 24 hours. These satellites are called geostationary satellites. We can obtain its height of revolution from the surface of Earth, and it is found around 36,000 kilometers. In this presentation, we have discussed Kepler's law of planetary motion, the universal law of gravitation, the concept of acceleration due to gravity with its variation with height, depth and rotation. We have also discussed the concept of gravitational potential energy, escape velocity and mechanical energy of satellites.